Hello, welcome to this session of Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. My name is Sofia Valle, and I was an Internet Society Ambassador in 2020 at the UN Internet Governance Forum, and I'm currently part of Generation Connect, America's youth group from ITU. And today I'm delighted to have a discussion about tech and tech careers with Paula Nishio, Chief Information Technology Services Division at UNIDO. Talking Tech is a series celebrating girls and women in tech being recorded around the world between Girls in ICT Day 2020 and Girls in ICT Day 2021. Girls in ICT Day is an international day marked on the fourth Thursday of each April. The objectives of Girls in ICT Day are to help to create a global environment that empowers and encourages girls and young women to consider studies and careers in the growing field of information and communication technologies. The Talking Tech series is brought to you by the ITU, UNICC, and the Office of the UN Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, and in support of EQUALS, the Global Partnership for Gender Equality in the Digital Age. Paula is pleased to be a part of the session today. The goals of the series include two: interesting and inspiring girls and younger women with information about a range of IC careers that can be had, bring before a broader audience some of the role model women in tech and share information about their career journeys and work. Offer diverse examples of how ICT is being used to support achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and other UN goals. Showcase initiatives that are working with girls to support them in ICT studies or future ICT careers. Provide girls and young women in tech with a leadership opportunity to represent and promote a girls in tech organization with which they are involved and be promoted to a broader international audience. To kick the session off, I'm going to introduce you to Paula. She worked at the International Criminal Court. After that, she worked for the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons in the Infrastructure and Operations sector as head of the programs unit, and since 2017, she works at UNIDO as head of the Information Technology Division. So now I'm delighted to now shift to a conversation with Paula. So Paula, thank you for joining me in this conversation. So start with, when and how did you get in technology, and what was your path from then to now?
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I started in technology very young because coming from a not so privileged background in Brazil, one of the interesting study paths that you can take is as of a high school level technician. So I started in technology studying to be an electronics with emphasis in telecommunications technician at the age of 14. And I never stopped. From the moment that I graduated as a technician, I start working, but the life of a person in technology is a life of lifelong learning. So I continued working and studying throughout my career since then. So I work full time. I started in the private sector, first at Goodyear, then at Hewlett Packard. While I studied, I finished my degree as a technician. I did my higher degree, and that was my career in the private sector. It was 10 years in the private sector, and I had some sort of early midlife crisis at the age of 26, 27, and I thought that my skills and the experience that I had acquired and my work and my sweat and my blood and tears could be used for better pursuits. And that's when I decided to pursue opportunities in the United Nations systems. After 10 years, I made a lateral move into the United Nations. So my first employer, the organization that welcomed me to be in the UN system, was the International Criminal Court in The Hague. I worked there 8 years and a half, and I did my master's while working for the International Criminal Court. I have a master's in technology management, and then I moved to OPCW, the Organization of Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. I continued studying, also professional certifications, TOGAF, ITIL, PRINCE2, you name it, in terms of professional certifications. I was very, very, very fortunate that while I was working with the OPCW got Nobel Peace Prize of 2013. That was really a fantastic moment in my career. It was when we were working with Syria and looking at disarmament and chemical weapons. It was very interesting. And in 2017, I left The Hague and moved to Vienna to work with UNIDO. And so I moved from, so I work in the industry, I work with industry, I work in IT, I work with the judiciary, I work with disarmament, and now I work with economic development. So with one degree, you can do anything.
Yes.
And that's where I am now, working in economic development and making sure that my colleagues have the best they can get so that we can bring about the SDGs through the use of technology, in my case. That's my job. Thank you.
That's great. That's amazing trajectory. I see that you have a lot of different experiences, so that's really interesting. My second question will be, can you share an example of things you have done or with tech that you are particularly proud of?
I am proud of a lot of things. In my career, I've done lots of different projects. I've been in many different places. I come from many places. I met many different people from all backgrounds. I would like to pinpoint one story. I like that one because it has a narrative of gender equality. Because, of course, when I moved to the United Nations system in 2003, we were not talking so much about gender equality or gender parity. It was not mainstream yet. It was not a thing. So I had difficulties in the private sector, and when I moved to the United Nations, I didn't expect it to be different, and in a way, it wasn't different. And because of the specific context where I was inserted, it was actually more difficult because in the International Criminal Court, I was a telecommunications officer. And if you can pinpoint an area that was macho, that's the telecommunications, because that's an area that is heavily dominated by peacekeeping people. So it's military. It was a very macho area. To get hired for that job, I of course I didn't know then. I just applied and was invited for an interview, and then I got the job and I came to The Hague. When I learned that there was a lot of controversy in the panel, because the dominant line of thought that this is not a job for a woman, because you go to war zones, you may be shot, it's hardship, you have to climb towers, you have to do all sorts of stuff that women were not supposed to be doing. But luckily, I had a very, very, very a hiring manager that was a feminist before it was cool, and he thought that I was the best candidate, and I came in. So it was not an easy environment for me, because I really had to prove myself in a very obvious way. It was not as subdued. It was not unconscious bias. The bias was very conscious and right in my face. So I had to operate in that environment and establish field offices and establish field operations, IT infrastructure in hardship areas, like areas that were not peaceful, areas that had just were still under threat, a high level security risk, in an environment that there was very few women. And that was really hard, because I remember you had to walk in meetings and people would ask you, are you here to take the minutes? There were people who told me in my face, oh, gender parity has gone too far now, even here. So I had to hear all sorts of things that now nobody says it because it's not cool anymore, but they were cool then. It was cool to say those things in certain environments. And I have to deliver in that environment. So I felt like I had much more to prove than anybody else. So, and it was a startup operation. I had to work very hard. I had to establish all the agreements. I had to talk to a lot of people. I had to go to lots of areas. But eventually, I start establishing field operations. I start establishing field offices. I start connecting field offices. My work started to show, to the point that people felt confident that we could, for example, have a remote testimony in the court remotely. We could have remote testimony. And this was very rare. This was not something that was actually done. Normally people fly witnesses and keep in remote protection, in witness protection. And we were doing everything remotely. And that was around 2006. Everything was satellite. It was a bit harder than it is today. So today, if you look at technology, how you would go about it, it's completely different than the way you used to do then. We had to transport massive antennas. We have to do all sorts of things. A lot of things were like garage projects. It was a lot of work. And the pivotal moment when everything was done and tested and retested, and we finally had our first testimony in court with a protected witness from Bunia, I believe, that's Eastern Congo. And that's when the court hearing started, and the court officers were speaking to the judge. And when we started, she asked, "Do you hear me well? Do you listen to me well? Do you see me well?" And the judge just said, "It's like you were here. Let's start." And that was the apex of 2 years of blood, sweat, and tears, working in a very hard environment. It was hard in itself, but of course, having achieved that as a woman in that environment also had a very special, was a very special for me. And it's very hard to top that. With 2013, we got a Nobel Peace Prize, but when people ask me, what was your best moment in your entire career? It was that minute.
I imagine. And I think that your story only shows to us how women face a lot of challenge in their career path, and it's really inspiring to hear that from you. My third question will be, what is the importance to you of having women work with technology? One of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals is gender equality, is SDG number 5. So I think that more specifically, how the agency work now, UNIDO, have been working to include more women in technology. How you see this transition and this development?
Well, there is a lot of talks nowadays about gender mainstreaming, which means it's not about recruiting more women. It's not about individual actions, but making sure that there is the element of gender is everywhere, in inception of programs, in recruitment, in promotion, in even when we are setting up a panel for discussion, you need to think, okay, is this panel representative? Do we have women? So gender mainstream is a very powerful concept. It means a lot of different things in lots of different contexts. It's about doing the right outreach. For example, in IT, there is less women. That's a given. It's like, I think women are 25% of the available workforce. So you need to target your outreach. You need to make sure that your applications encourage the application of women. And it's not just about putting on the top, we want women. It's not just about that. It's about making sure that the wording that you use is also gender neutral. It's about making sure that your communication are gender neutral, or at least doesn't carry so much bias. So the UN has been working very strongly with this, and the results are starting to show. The Secretariat already announced that they have already achieved gender parity in the senior levels. They still need to work downwards. So there are results. There are also results in programmatic. There is also more gender awareness in design of programs, and making sure that we are collecting gender disaggregated data, making sure that each program is designed for the realities of the beneficiary community, but always with a leave no one behind mentality, and making sure that it's inclusive. So there's a lot of work going that direction. There's a lot of success, but of course we're not there yet. There is still a lot of work to be done.
Yes, and that's why I think that such initiatives like that is so important. I think that we need to talk more about gender inequality, and especially women to support each other, because I think that, as you said, we as a marginalized group, we need to empower ourselves as a whole. So I think that that's really important. My last question to you would be, since this series is about girls and women technology, do you have any career or tech advice for girls and young women in tech?
Thank you. Of course, I would love to. I think the advice that I would like to give, and this really comes from my personal story, is that the bias still exists. It may not be so outspoken, but it still exists. There is still people who will be surprised to see women in certain fields. There are still people who maybe they will not say anything, but the bias is still there. So my best advice is to, if technology is what you want to work with, follow your gut and be persistent. Because there's a lot of people saying now, oh, it's all about women, only women get jobs, and which creates a different sort of bias. Because people start thinking that, oh, if you're a woman is easy, and I don't think it got any easier. I really don't think it got any easier. In my story, it was all about trying and getting a no, and trying again and getting a no, and trying again and getting a no, and trying again and getting a no. So I think persistence is, from the point of view of an individual woman, young woman, looking into a career in ICT or in a career in tech in general, say, don't stop for a no. Don't be disheartened. Don't give up. It wasn't easy for me, for example, to make the switch between the private sector and the UN system. I did tens of applications. It was tens of rejected applications. But what you need to remember is you only need one yes.
Yeah.
And you've moved on. Doesn't matter how many no's you got. So why not? So keep trying, keep insisting, and the opportunities will come. And eventually, when you least expect it, you already made your move into the industry, or you made your move up the industry, or you made into a senior position. It's possible. It's not easy. So it needs people with a lot of grit. And women normally have a lot of grit, so it's not something that we have in short supply. So it shouldn't be a problem. But don't give up. And that would be my advice.
That's a great one.
So closing the interview, may I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
So how do you see technology or ICT or any technology in general, helping the cause of gender equality and gender parity?
Okay, so my focus and my interest is in how technology can be an instrument to improve politics. So I believe that technology will be increasingly present in our lives more. So with the advancement of 5G, IoT, I think that it's important to us to think about how we want to use it in the most beneficial and fair way possible. So preventing it from being used in harmful ways as related issues, cybercrime, use of data in discriminatory manners. So I think that if used for good, technology can be a tool with enormous potential to improve many people's quality of life. So I think that in all groups, especially marginalized groups as women, we can do a lot of improvements with technology, delivering efficient and inclusive and practical solutions. So my focus is in study on digital government, development of digital service, and app that can expand popular participation and can give voice to all the groups and to all groups being represented in politics. And I think that technology has a lot to do with that because we can use social media today. So now we can have a voice and we can bring back and share stories. And there are a lot of good initiatives, and I can say that in Brazil, that trying to put women in the perspective of politics, trying to give power to them. And they are using a lot of social media and technology. So I believe that technology cannot just be a tool for women, but all groups. And that's what I'm interested in too. Interest is made to find solutions and innovations in politics which positively impact society. And I believe that technology can contribute a lot to that, and especially with women too. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. And just to add to what she mentioned, of course, in a world that's getting increasingly digital, everything is about data, everything is about algorithms, everything is about technology that's getting very technological. It's very important to have diversity among the people who are creating this technology, because it's like a cultural problem. It's like a movie. If you don't have diversity and the creation of those artifacts, it's the artifact itself will have its own biases. So that's why it's so important. So that's why we promote women. It's not just about giving opportunities in tech, but of course making the tech inclusive, because of course the data is biased because it's historical. If you have only a certain group of people creating tech and creating algorithms, and their bias is there, and then you have a tech that is actually perpetuating the inequality. So that's why, please, girls, young women, if you think that tech is for you, please join us. We are here. The veterans are here to support you in your journey.
Yes, that's really great, because it's what you talk. We need representation, not just in politics and technology, because we need to have politics for women too. So we struggle a lot of times with questions about motherhood, about violence against women. So it's really important to have public policies and technologies that can put us in this path where we can develop and improve and give more quality of life for women. So I think that's really important. And I'm even happier to see not only a woman in technology career, but also a Brazilian, that
yes,
I'm a college Brazilian as I am. So I think it's really important, not just women in technology, but women around the world with different backgrounds and different cultures, because that's really important. And that's what I think it's going to give up to grow and grow more. So it's great to see your inspiration story from you, Anna. And that wraps up our session today for Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. Thanks so much for your story, and I really enjoy your side today. So thanks so much for our viewers for watching too.
Thank you, Sophia, and everybody who's listening. Thank you for listening to our talk. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you.